Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for this important and insightful hearing. Let me echo your remarks, Mr. Chairman. In my district in Connecticut, we have successfully worked with the historic tax credit that this committee specifically has worked on, and have been able to provide for Clover Gardens in my district housing, 4 units that address family concerns, including people with disabilities, in a historic tax area. And what they've done is simply remarkable. And because of that, now more than 100 families have a roof over their head and shelter and the opportunity to pursue the American dream. I guess a lot of us believe that government does have a role in helping people out. But a couple of questions I want to throw out. Mr. Pinto, do you believe that Joe Biden caused the global pandemic?
I don't think so.
No, neither do we. But did the global pandemic, as it ensued, create enormous problems internationally and here at home, especially with the supply chain issues that you raised?
I don't believe the supply chain issues in the housing area were the main cause. I think it was the inflationary pressures that developed through Fed action. And
so you're saying that the pandemic had no impact on inflation?
Minimal.
Minimal.
Yeah.
All right. So now I also wanted to ask you as well that because you said in your remarks that these investors that are buying up, that they bear no responsibility at all in terms of what's going on in the housing industry, that investment bankers buying up these housing and turning and flipping it, that has no impact on inflation? I just want to be clear.
I think focusing on that takes the eye off of the real culprit here. I would focus on the low-income housing tax credit and all of the people involved in that.
That's not the question I asked you. The question I asked you was, do you think that they have any responsibility with regard to that?
I don't believe it's fruitful to focus on that. You need to focus on other areas that have much more impact.
I guess the answer is no. Mrs. Raymond, how can this committee begin to address the rise of institutional investors and private equity purchasing properties that are jacking up rents and artificially creating difficult conditions for low and middle income people to purchase homes?
Thank you so much for your question. I think there's a couple of actions that Congress should take. First of all, I think we need to think about the fact that these firms are closely tied to secondary financial markets. We talk a lot about supply and demand in the primary housing market, but we need to think about the pressures for demand that are being created in secondary markets, and also the way in which these firms use these homes as collateral. Ideally, you wouldn't have firms being able to appraise a home at a value that's far higher than what a homeowner could pay. So you don't want to see a divergence between the appraisal for homes that homeowners pay and for homes that are purchased by institutional investors. It's very difficult to understand market share. So we have individual reports of exceedingly high market shares that these firms have in certain submarkets, but because we lack rental property registries, it takes somebody with a PhD to put the data sets together to identify who these firms are. It makes it really hard for people to talk to their landlord, for cities to negotiate with large landowners in their cities, and also for regulators to understand, do these firms have the ability to set prices and set rents? And I think also the use of eviction to threaten people that if they don't pay these increasing late fees, or if they don't pay these increasing rents, or if they don't pay these hidden fees, they'll get evicted, is part of why we see these very aggressive rental increases. So funding tenant defense, thinking about ways to empower tenants and level the playing field between these global financial players and households is another important component of what we should be looking at the federal level. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raymond.